What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today we've got a couple of things that we want to discuss. There was an interview that Zach Guthrie has done over the course of the last few days, just a series of interviews and those, the typical sort of pre-season fare, where he discusses a few important topics, I think, to Cats fans over the course of this year. One being Bailey Smith, but two, his brother, Cam Guthrie. And in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the midfield blend for 2025, how those two players will fit into it in various different capacities, and what Zach has had to say on the matter, because I think it highlights a little bit of the maybe a conflict of sorts between what Bailey Smith was wanting upon joining the Cats, but the philosophies that Geelong has had in place for quite some time that may kind of butt heads from time to time. I don't think in any necessarily toxic or problematic kind of way, but there's going to be some massaging of priorities and wants and desires a little bit to make this thing work. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
Thank you, Cyril Cook, as always, and let's get back into it. Now, there was an interview that, as I mentioned, Zach Guthrie did, and we're checking out the coverage here that Channel 10 has put together. I can't even think of the last time I watched anything from Channel 10, but it's nice to see Quarters on the screen again. And he's talking about, look, the focus is Cam Guthrie, because of course Zach's talking about he's going to refer to his brother a bit. But it does kind of like it, of course, because every conversation media-wise when it comes to Geelong at the moment also involves a bit of Bailey Smith. And I do think that there is a connection between these two topics and then some of the things that Zach is saying and some pre-existing information that we have. So let's jump into it. I'm going to pop my headphones on and we can kind of tune into this one a little bit together. Hopefully it's not too loud. We'll try and get this just right. And we'll hit play.
Geelong's Zach Guthrie is backing older brother Cam to return in round one. The veteran midfielder is enjoying a promising pre-season after a luckless run with injury.
The fans came to see Bailey Smith, only to be told the Cats star recruit was battling illness. But while the skipper said their new weapon is headed for the engine room, Zach Guthrie thinks Smith's role isn't set in stone.
When you are a player like Bailey and you've got a number of strengths you can bring to the game, I think flexibility is something that we can really utilise, and I'm sure he'll play a number of different positions for us and do it at a really high level.
Guthrie backed older brother Cam.
Now, before we focus on the Cam Guthrie portion of this, I do want to focus on this because there's conflicting information here. And I think what we're talking about here is a difference between what was initially pitched to Bailey Smith and what the reality of the situation is. And I don't think Bailey Smith has necessarily been misled at all. I think a lot of this is also about what's being put forward publicly, but we can kind of pass through this a little bit. So if we think back to trade period and a lot of the messages that were going around about Bailey Smith's desire to want to join the Cats, and some of the things that frustrated him the most when he was at the Western Bulldogs was around the fact that he wanted to be, as you know, kind of Danger's referred to in some conversations, the engine room. He wants to be in the guts. He wants to be the inside midfielder. He wants to spend presumably 90% of his game time playing up forward. But what Zach has kind of alluded to here is that, and we all know this, Bailey has multiple different skill sets that lend him to playing in different positions around the ground. Now, I don't necessarily expect him to see him running off half back. I don't think the back half is where he's going to be living at all. But beyond that, we know that Bailey has been a great contributor off the wing, and I know he's probably not super crazy about that idea, but he's been a brilliant contributor off the wing at different stages for the Dogs, and we know he's got a lot of goal sense. So I think that mid to forward half of the ground is somewhere that he can absolutely exist again at the Cats. I feel like to appease him, and this is where, like with every football club, every player has got their own individual wants, desires, their managers are involved, their families are involved, their personal egos are involved. There's a whole range of different factors in the mix. But Bailey absolutely will want to spend more time in the midfield than he ever has before. And I think Geelong can facilitate that pretty comfortably because we didn't have the Bonts and the Libbers, and like we don't have as stacked of a midfield as what the Dogs have had. And so he's going to absolutely, I think, get more game time there as a result. But we do have plenty of players that we are rotating through. If you want to think Max Holmes, if you want to think Tanner Bruin, you want to think Danger, we're going to talk about Cam Guthrie in a moment. We're going to talk about the other young blokes that are all coming through, your Jai Clarks, etc. It's a bounty of blessings that we've got that can all rotate through that, and they're all at different points of their career. I think Danger's going to be pretty happy to and Cam Guthrie presumably as well, are going to be happy to kind of play lesser minutes in there if it's going to lead to team success, because they're at that point in their career where if they get another premiership, they're stoked. But it's less about ego. They've climbed that mountain. They've climbed it multiple times if you Cam Guthrie. No. He's only got one. But like they've been there, they've done that, they've conquered the mountain, they've won All Australians, they've won Brownlows, they've won all sorts of things over the years. They're not like they're in it for team success 100% at this point. So if they play lesser minutes to allow your Bailey Smiths, to allow your Tanner Bruins, to allow your Max Holmeses and those sorts of guys to continue to develop in that way, especially because they're still so young, they're not going to have any issues there. But even if you take those two guys out, there's still quite a lot of players that have got to rotate through that space. And I think Bailey needs to accept, if he hasn't already, and I presume he probably has, because he's a grown adult and he would have had plenty of conversations with the coaching team, that he is going to spend some time every now and then coming off the wing, because maybe we need to be bashing, crashing a little bit more, and maybe we need a Tom Atkins, a Paddy Dangerfield, a Tom Stewart sort of midfield, and we need Bailey off the wing. Or maybe we need that spice and flair and class in the forward line for a little bit. So Bailey, we're going to send you into play off the half forward flank for a while. I think he's got to accept that that's going to happen. I think as Geelong supporters, we don't want to buy too much into this message of he's just going to play in the midfield, because that's not what the reality is going to be. Let's move on to the rest of the interview here.
For an opening round return after a luckless run with injury.
It's probably frustrating when
2 years
you can't get on the field and play games. That's sort of what you're here to do, isn't it? He's moving around well, and he's progressed his stuff even sort of since the end of last year, and he's feeling good.
The defender has also forged a bubbling bromance with...
And we'll talk about Lawson Humphries in a second. But it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years of Cam Guthrie really, ever since the premiership, the end of 2022, he has just been injury plagued. And not all, like, I know that, people go, oh, it's age and old man injuries and those, but we're not really talking about a lot of those sort of injuries. We're talking about a foot injury that plagued him for basically a season. And like, that's not really, like, that's one that if you recover right, if you get an operation, if you need it, those sorts of things, you can get it right and then you're good to go. He's not been plagued by those old man injuries that we tend to expect, but he is at that point where those can start to kick in. And when other parts of the body aren't firing the way they can be, it puts additional stress through the hamstrings, through the calves, those sorts of things that are expected to go more when you're at the vintage that Cam Guthrie is. That said, I am really confident in Cam Guthrie's ability this season to thrive, to be a really important cog in the midfield machine. Now, there are some older legs that are going to be going through there. Of course, I've mentioned Danger already. Tom Atkins is not quite of the same sort of vintage, but he's on the older end of the spectrum there. Tom Stewart has been rotating through. It'll be interesting to see how Tom Stewart is used in that space. Mitch Duncan is still on the list, and presumably his last season, but there's some complications around where he fits in that mix as well. It's going to be a really fascinating season for Cam Guthrie as he tries to he's essentially had in some ways 2 years off. He's not sustained that bash and crash and those sorts of niggly injuries that come from it, but he's also been away from football for 2 years, and he is 2 years older. The clock is ticking at the end of the day. But I'm pretty confident that Cam Guthrie can have a really important season for us. He's never been the speedster through the midfield, but he's going to have plenty of those around him in Danger, in Bailey Smith, in Max Holmes. He's got those sorts of bodies around him. The youth is there to kind of spice it up and to keep it energetic and those sort of things. Well, he can go about accumulating and getting that ball out of the contest. He's still so good in a contest, and that's where he really thrives. And the thing that I think I struggled with the limited amount of game time that we saw from Cam Guthrie in 2023, 2024, the comments thrown at him before the injuries would kick in and he'd be removed from the game anyway were, his kicking's a bit rough. He's not hitting his targets. Well, of course he's not. He's basically spent 2 years away from football. You're not going to get 2022 Cam Guthrie straight away. It's going to take a few games to get your sea legs, to get yourself acclimatized to the speed of the game again. It's a long time to be away from the game. And so I really implore everyone who's watching right now to just keep in mind when the time comes and Cam Guthrie returns, give, like any player really, but I think Cam Guthrie more than most, give him some time to get himself back up to the speed of the game again. It's going to take a couple of games to, not get run down, to kind of make sure that those handballs, those kicks sticking, because he's learning. I mean, there's so many new faces. He's learning about how they move as well. It's going to take some time. He doesn't have those same Joel Selwoods and Mark Blitzer. I mean, Mark's still obviously there, but like he doesn't have those same people that are going to be in his consistent midfield mix. This is a new midfield blend for him, and he hasn't spent that much time playing with them. And so it takes some time to get that cohesion going. So please, everyone watching, give him some time. I'm firmly of the mind that Cam Guthrie is going to have a really, especially if his body holds up, a really, really important season for the Cats, and will be a major factor in us having a crack at the premiership in 2025. The final bit here is Zach Guthrie talking a little bit about his budding bromance with Lawson Humphries, which we'll quickly discuss as well. So let's bring that one up. Go.
Fellow backman Lawson Humphries.
I've really enjoyed working closely with him, and he's someone I'll continue to learn off myself. I mean, some of the things he did last year, I sort of admired myself. So looking forward to continuing that sort of bond with him.
While it seems last year's best and fairest winner, Max Holmes, has picked up where he left off.
When he gets the ball, he's obviously got that electric pace, which has been something he's sort of just been able to continue.
Jonathan Simon for 10 News First.
All right. So, I mean, there's a couple little points there at the end. Obviously, Max Holmes picking up where he left off. My big worry for Max is that he keeps pinging hamstrings in prelim finals. If he could stop that, that'd be sweet. Obviously not his fault what happened, but really unfortunate. And then obviously the Lawson Humphries thing. I mean, I'm expecting big things from Lawson Humphries this year. I think he's going to have a really huge season. He started so strongly, and I don't think he's the sort of person that's going to be afflicted by second-year blues. I think this could be a really important year and a changing of the guard through the defense. But we'll talk more about the defensive unit and some of the key players in that in the future. This really was designed to focus on Bailey Smith and then specifically Cam Guthrie and how that midfield's going to look, what we should expect from that midfield over the course of the year, and how those two players feature in it. Anyway, that is where we're going to wrap things up for this video. Things are continuing to build, and it's nice to not be recording about deaths or other negative news in football. We can talk about the game. We can get excited about season 2025. And I hope you, the Cats fans watching today, are as excited as we are, because it's, who knows? Like, I love the idea of winning a flag this year, and we've been so close so many times. We obviously tasted it in 2022 and got it that year, but 2024, we had every right to win that prelim final, and then I think would have gone on to win the flag comfortably from that point. So it's a bit unfortunate that it didn't work out, but 2025, our list is stronger. Let's go again. Let me know in the comments what you think about Cam Guthrie, what you think about Bailey Smith, and what you think about that midfield mix for 2025. How does it look? What should we expect? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube if you've just found this video for the first time. There's heaps more stuff to come. We've got big plans for this year. In fact, as I record this, Ben Reeve is on his way to my house right now, where we're heading off to meet up with the chaps as well. All five of us are going to get together and talk about our big plans for season 2025. We've got lots in store, and I can't wait to get that going and for you guys to all see what we're planning. As always, check out the Hoops Crew on socials as well. Find us on Patreon, where you can get early access to content, exclusive content, and extended content as well. And when it comes to socials, you can find me at Paul James Games. Until next time, remain Geelong strong. Have a big year, Cam Guthrie. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later.